right, good morning, everybody. I feel it's very important for me to talk about what I'm about to talk about. I just saw the headline of a video of a certain younger man who makes videos, and as unsuccessful as I am here on YouTube, I think he's a little bit less successful. I don't mean to be belittling him in any way on a personal level. It happens that we both at one time applied for the same position, I believe. I got it. I didn't keep it very long, but at least it was my, where I got to cut my teeth on being a synagogue rabbi and so forth. Got some experience. Thank God I have a good position now that I enjoy. And I love what I'm doing. It would be nice to have some more speaking engagements and things so I can have a little bit more parnasa, but I can't spread myself out really too thin. I kind of, in my heart, as I'm doing this series of lectures on the Hasidic movement, and last night I tried to make a video and don't think it came out very well. I think I might have to try that again. But in any event, I do have this kind of feeling in my heart, and which is something that I've kind of wanted to do for a while. I would like to travel around these small towns in Pennsylvania and upstate New York, just to kind of, do what the old tzaddikim did, give chizik to Jews, in places all over, and like this guest speaker stuff. If I go to Brooklyn or Queens or Muncie to be a guest speaker, it's because I want to make money, because they don't need me, right? I need them more than they need me. But I feel like if I go to some small town in Pennsylvania, go and give chizik there, I'm actually doing something that needs to be done. And I do want to reach out and meet people and build bridges also in the non-Jewish world as well. Maybe if I go to Brooklyn or Muncie and go speak in a church or something, maybe that might be worthwhile, more than in a synagogue. But it's neither here nor there. In any event, what I want to talk about, this one younger man, I'm not going to mention his name. It was the minhag of the Samarov not to name names when you're upset at somebody, and I'll be totally honest. I didn't see what he said, but I know already what he's going to say. I just seeing this headline, and knowing a little bit about this guy, how he speaks, how he operates, what he believes, I'm going to make an assumption, and if it's not him, I know there are others who believe like this. I mean, even people tell me this, and I understand if someone who's 90 years old, believes this. But for someone who's 30 years old to believe this it's problematic. And the issue that I really wanted to talk about is the reconciliation that has been going on for 50 years, 60 years, in interfaith matters. And really, in a certain way, predates that, and how much really historical revisionism we suffer from in the world, that we want to see everything in the terms of black and white, and it's either this or that, and that's all there is, and there's nothing else really to talk about. and it's simply, it's not to say that's not true. Kind of like the previous video that I made about this issue of certain conspiracy theories. Things are complicated. They're not as simple as people want to make them out to be. And the relationship that the Jewish community has had with other communities through the years has been nuanced. It's not as black and white as like a lot of people just want to make it sound like that. There were pogroms every day, and everybody hated Jews, and and it's simply not true. It's as much as certain people believe that. Even among people who were active Nazis, a lot of them had no choice. They were weak and not able to stand up against this feeling of dealing with with having a gun to your head telling you that if you don't do this you're going to get killed. And how do you make these decisions in life? These are not easy decisions to make when people are faced in dire situations. But this idea of painting entire religions and all adherents to entire religions in such an extremely negative light is not founded in history and not founded in the writings of our sages throughout the generations. It was always a nuanced approach that you might have different people arguing one side or the other about these issues, but there was no absolute fundamental dogma about these things, the way that for so many Jews who are not dogmatic about anything else, this is the one dogma that they have, is that everybody hates us. They take their theology from Tom Lehrer, where he has the song about National Brotherhood Week, and he said, this one hates that one, and that one hates this one. I don't have to mention names. I know the words of the song, but I don't want to be disrespectful. And then he said, and everybody hates the Jews. And everybody had a good laugh because Tom Lehrer is funny. He should be well. He's still alive. I heard him. Actually, they got him on the phone on the PBS special where they played one of his old concerts a few weeks ago, and so he's still the same old irreverent Tom Lehrer. And that didn't come out of a vacuum. Yes, that is the concept that people have, but it's also it's a reality that I think has been played up too much. And as I said yesterday, certain factions want it that way. There are certain, just like you have, the race baiters in the African American community, the race hustlers in the African American community, people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, and I don't mind to mention their names, as the same way that I do mind mentioning this rabbi's name, who, I take videos in my car. It almost looks like he's taking videos in a prison cell or something. I don't know, it's like a bunk bed. I don't know what the where he's taking these videos, but I don't know, and I know it because I work in the prison, and it kind of looks like I don't know, I guess maybe someone smuggled in a phone or something, but this guy, how much does he actually interact with people of other faiths? You know, that's what it comes down to. And so I didn't watch the video. I didn't have time to watch his videos. I really don't like listening to him, to be honest. And I feel bad saying that. Maybe some people know who I'm talking about. And if I'm wrong, correct me. You know, maybe you do my job and watch his video and tell me if you know who I'm talking about. But recently, one of the headlines of his videos, he sends out these emails advertising his YouTube videos, and still it seems like he gets less views than I do by sending out emails saying what the videos are about. You know, he set up this whole system because and I know exactly why he did it, because there was this guy who was advertising about how to advertise and how to build an email list and this and that in the Orthodox Jewish community, and right after that, this guy he was you know, running with that, you know, sign up, you know, for my you know, you'll get my free ebook, and that, following exactly the formula that was advertised in this video, in this forum. I didn't do that. I don't need these gimmicks. You know, I put these videos up, and I try to have, I don't know if I really have, but I try to have faith that if this is what God wants, if God wants me to be successful here on YouTube, it's going to happen. And the success that I do have is from God. I don't mean to in any way belittle my precious viewers who I really care about. I love it when you comment back on my videos, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. You know, it's not my job to save the world, but it is my job. You know, it's like we said the other day, you know, I'm not afraid that they're going to ask me, why weren't you Moses, why weren't you Abraham, but why weren't you Zusha? That's something that I have to be afraid of. Why wasn't I me? And it's not my job to save the whole world, as much as I do get requests from all over the world for people to, you know, they're looking for some guidance from me, and and certain people I take into my, you know, Chatzer. They're my Hasidim. I know that I love very much, even though I never met them. But you know, and I'm talking about people all over the world, and you know, so there's a certain community in Brazil that I, you know, gave a lot of chizik to, and helped this younger man, help him get his smicha, and he's a rav there, and he's having tsaras there, and we want to daven for him that, you know, there should be shalom there in the kehillah, but it's probably a siman that he's doing something right, to be honest. But then I get emails from other places. I can't spread myself out that thin. But to have a YouTube channel with 1,300 subscribers, and to have comments every 2 or 3 days that sometimes I can respond to, especially if they're relatively brief, and I can address the questions, and I can understand what's being asked, and I really feel a certain level of brotherhood and sisterhood to the folks who write to me in the comments section here, and this is the springboard from which I can respond and you know, make more videos, and it's fine if I don't get remonetized, I guess, you know. And I always question, should I set up, I was going to set up a Patreon account, but I don't know if I want to. I feel, you know, I know a lot of people on YouTube, they really feel uncomfortable doing that, and so do I, because, you know, thank God I have a good job, you know, but you know, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and that's fine. But it would be nice if from YouTube I made another $500 a month or something, you know. That would be great. And if I made $1,000 a month, even better, you know, and just it would help me get through the month, you know, because really it's not even paycheck to paycheck, you know. I get a paycheck, and 3 days later I pay all my bills, and that's it. I don't have it, you know. And then another job I have, they were late on the paycheck. I finally got one paycheck 4 months late, and I really have to send my next invoice for that. But we do what we do, and we go, but I wanted to talk about this subject, and I'm rambling on for 15 minutes. So, I'm going to assume, probably wrongly, and it's my fault, I'm recalling my sins today, that this one younger man who has his YouTube channel with like 5 subscribers, after putting in so much his shtadlis, making these ebooks and trying to build up email lists, and it still didn't work. So that when I kind of see that, I kind of feel like so it shows me I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing things the right way. I don't need the gimmicks, to do what I'm doing. And I wish him well when he's actually teaching Torah, but he gets involved in these things that he has no business getting involved in. And that's, people have to know their place. And I kind of maybe privately should put him in his place and tell him, this is not your place. This is detrimental to the Klal Yisrael to talk like this, to be essentially, without maybe intending it, but being like a Jewish Jesse Jackson or a Jewish Al Sharpton. And there are a lot of people like this, and it's not the people that you might think, because those are the more famous ones. I'm talking to you, Queen Bee. You've mentioned some names, and one who I met personally many, many years ago. When I was in high school. Remember an interaction with him I've discussed before, and you could go through my old videos if you want to hear more. But so the whole issue that we're talking about here, what all of this means and everything. So the headline was, again, I didn't watch the video, he formed it in the form of a question, because he's on Jeopardy. Did the church really mean it when they apologized to us? And I can just imagine what this guy is saying, what kind of nonsense garbage this guy is spouting. And I don't know if this guy has ever met a Catholic priest in his life. I don't know if this guy ever bothered to read what are, the interactions that our rabbis had with priests, with bishops, and so forth. Meaning all these, and Rabbi Yonatan Halevi is right. It's a big problem that, you have all these stories that are like, oh, the bad guy, he's a bishop, he's a this, he's a that. Instead of, we just have all of these negative stories that really have no place. We should not be, just labeling everybody else as the bad guys, and we're always the innocent ones. When the fact historically is that we bear guilt ourselves, and the Jewish tradition tells us that we're supposed to be introspective. When an earthquake happens, in some far off country that we have no connection to, it's supposed to be a wake-up call to us to repent, to think about God, and to strengthen our relationship with God. And that's what we're supposed to be doing, and not anything about looking at, oh, what did they do? No, we gotta look at what did we do, even if it has nothing to do with us, and certainly when it has what to do with us. Maimonides says that somebody. Maimonides was a rationalist, right? Everybody knows Maimonides was a rationalist, right? all of the times when he says in the laws of fasting that, if somebody doesn't take it personally, when something bad happens, why did this guy signal? And go into introspection when a disaster happens in the world. We got to take these things personally. Whatever happens in the world, we have to look at like it's our fault. And if not, Maimonides says, you're cruel. But instead we go and we blame everybody else instead of looking at ourselves and recognizing that, we have a special relationship with God. The Bible tells us in Amos, in the book of Amos, it says, only you have I known among all the nations of the world, and therefore I will visit upon you all of your sins. What does that mean? It means that the relationship that we have, the status that the Jews have as a chosen people, is specifically a status of responsibility, and specifically one in the sense of tzaddikim nedorim chutasara, that the righteous are judged at a hair's breadth, in the sense of how Moses was judged for hitting the rock instead of speaking to the rock, and punished so severely, whereas if any of us would have done that, it would have been a miracle, because Moses was Moses. And so too, we are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and more is expected of us. Not that we have some kind of, cushy life, that, therefore we're special. No. What it means is that we have responsibilities. We're soldiers in the army. We're priests in the temple who are up to our knees in the blood of cattle, getting down and dirty to go and help others and to be a light and not just be selfish. And when I say selfish, I don't mean materially selfish, because we're not materially selfish, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. But the spiritual selfishness, which I understand, yes, someone else's material needs are your spiritual needs, but someone else's spiritual needs are also your spiritual needs when they want it, when they're begging for it, when they're thirsting for it, and you don't want to go help them. You're like, I'll give you, humanitarian aid, but I don't want to help you, convert to Judaism. Why would you want to do that? And why do people feel that? Because they themselves are miserable being Jews. They're not happy being Jews themselves, and that's what that's all about. If they understood what a precious gift it is to be a member of a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, they would, be at least welcoming to new recruits, if not actively proselytizing. And the thing is, so many people are like, why the hell would you want to do this? I wouldn't, if I woke up tomorrow and found out I wasn't Jewish, would I convert? That's the type of question. If you're Jewish, you got to ask yourself, would you convert or wouldn't you? I mean, the Yiddish Kodesh, he said every day he felt like he converted. The Piasetzner Rebbe, when he was 40 years old, on his 40th birthday, he wrote in his private journal that, I realized at this point in my life I would like to convert to Judaism. And nobody else was supposed to see that. So why did he write that? Meaning that he was struggling with that question, being a big Rebbe with thousands of Hasidim, and not only a Stam Rebbe, but someone who was out of the ordinary, somebody who was doing things in a different way, that he could feel proud of that, and I'm sure that gave him tremendous sippuk in his life, tremendous satisfaction. And yet he recognized in himself, which is also a sign of his greatness, that he recognized that he struggled with this question of whether or not he wanted to be Jewish. And then finally, 40 years old, and he'd been a Rebbe since he was, I believe, in his 20s, that he actually, felt that he was ready to commit to this, that he had been doing all his life, and recognized this is something he really wants to do. And it's so, I'm sure that this rabbi who makes videos on bunk beds and wears sweaters, I'm sure he's going to tell us that no, the church is evil, and they never really apologized, and the whole apology was just a fake way to try to gain new converts and this and that, which is nonsense and ignorant of anything, especially vis-a-vis the Catholic Church. This guy probably doesn't know the difference between Catholic and Protestant, and the truth is most Jews recognize that the evangelical Protestants are good friends of the Jewish people as well. And yes, they would be happy if Jews converted, but the thing is, we should be happy if Gentiles convert. I mean, if this is what they're really into, they should. It doesn't mean that they are mad at us if we don't, but they should. But just being happy if we would doesn't mean that they're necessarily, some kind of insidious, threat, existential threat. They can be proud of who they are. We can be proud of who we are, and we can both recognize that for some people who are in our communities, something else might work for them. Which I understand that certain fundamentalists can't believe that, but still probably in their heart, even if mentally they don't believe that, in their heart they probably still do, or they want to, or they wish it was that way, or they just they have a certain level of compassion for the other. All right, it's getting late. I don't have time to really address this that much more, but I will share a story, because I do work with priests and ministers and imams and Indian chiefs and Gotis and Wiccan high priests and Buddhists and everybody. And it doesn't mean that I'm, selling out on my own faith. I recognize, I believe with a perfect faith that my faith is the true faith. But I also recognize that for some people, maybe they're not ready for that yet. When Mashiach comes is when Mashiach comes, and then we're going to show and prove that our faith is the true faith. And I know, some people are going to say, well, then that will be the Antichrist, and the thing is, we won't know what happens until it happens. The way that Rabbi Bart Zadok told, what's his name, the late great planet Earth, what's the guy's name, Hal Lindsey. Rabbi Bart Zadok told Hal Lindsey, if he said, I don't care if I'm right or if you're right, as long as when it happens we can go both holding hands and say, blessed as he comes in the name of the Lord. And that was, and Hal Lindsey's Gaba there said, you're the first one to shut him up when you said that. And the thing is, that's the attitude we have to have. We can't. So one of my co-workers, who was a Catholic deacon, and he's very close with the bishop of his of his diocese. He's the bishop's right hand man, and the deacon was so excited. He says, he tries to go to Mass every day, which I'm jealous because I'd like to go to Minyan every day, and I don't have that luxury. I'm happy if I get to put on Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam before I leave, and then I go to work and I daven Shachris, and because there's another pair of talis and tefillin there, but I want to put on my talis and tefillin, and and I try my best to Baruch Hashem, I daven 3 times a day, but I would love to go to Minyan, once in a while. And this guy, because his work schedule is a little different than mine, I work like 8 to 4, I have to leave at 7, and the Minyan in my town is at 8, but whatever it is, he told me that, one of the daily Mass that he went to, he said there's one priest in his church that he loves so much and he respects him. He's a holy man. He wants me to meet him sometime. And this priest told him recently, he said, if anyone in this church believes that Jesus was there when he was giving out the bread and the fish and whatever, that in their story, that he was teaching these people how to be generous, and that these are all stingy people that needed to be taught a lesson. He said that's absolutely wrong. He said the Jewish people were always, and still to this day, are the most generous people you could ever meet. They would take the shirt off your back. There was nothing new there that Jesus was teaching. And the other thing that he said, specifically, meaning parochially and specifically about the Jewish community, he said these other religions, they have beautiful religions, the Buddhists and the Hindus and the Sikhs and this and that and the Muslims, they all have beautiful religions. He said, but he's a Christian obviously, but he said, but Judaism and Christianity are truth. They are a fact. They're not merely a religion. Now, that means that this man recognizes that there is something special about Judaism. Now, we can disagree with him about Christianity, but what's his name? John Hagee wrote, and always says, Judaism can exist perfectly fine without Christianity, but Christianity cannot exist without Judaism. And not only that, but John Hagee went and said, which I know maybe some Christians will be upset about, but it's just an amazing thing that here an evangelical Protestant fundamentalist pastor says that the only theology that God ever created was Judaism. Now that's what Rav Victor Miller taught, because he pointed out that nowhere in the books that the Christians call the New Testament does it ever say, "Thus saith the Lord." Whereas in our books, it says always, "Thus saith the Lord." So, obviously, there's issues to be discussed there for a Christian, but for a Jew, that's a solid truth. So, we got to stop walking around imagining that everybody hates us. But not only that, but even historically, our sages, Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz and Rabbi Yaakov Emden, as much as both of them were fighting with each other, they both had... Oh, here's my friend the deacon. Today he's not wearing his... he's letting me go through. So... and he they as much as Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz and Rabbi Yaakov Emden fought, they both were friends with their local bishops. So I think that's what we gotta recognize, that it's not us versus them. All right, God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.